They called it the final vote. 12 of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy gathered in one chamber, a chamber that had seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth of alliances, and the death of entire species. And on this day, they were voting on whether to wipe out humanity. Not because humans were evil, not because humans had attacked anyone, but because humans scared them. And when the vote came in, unanimous, every single council member raised their mark in agreement. Extermination approved. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that no one in the history of the universe had ever made a bigger mistake. The Galactic Convergence Council met once every 100 years. It was not a frequent gathering, because the logistics alone were staggering. Representatives from 12 civilizations, each from different star systems, each requiring different atmospheric conditions, different gravity levels, different sensory environments. The Veth, tall, skeletal beings with 6 arms and translucent skin, floated in pressurized tanks of liquid nitrogen. The Drull, massive, stone-like creatures who communicated through vibrations in the ground, sat on platforms that transmitted their rumbles into translated speech. The Sin beings of pure light and electromagnetic energy existed inside containment spheres that pulsed with soft color. And then there were the others. 12 civilizations, each ancient, each powerful, each having traveled the stars for thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of years. They had seen everything. Or so they thought. The High Speaker of the Council, Eldavos of the Veth, raised 2 of his 6 arms to call the chamber to silence. "We are gathered," he said, his translated voice echoing through every atmosphere simultaneously, "to discuss the anomaly. That was what they call humanity. Terranomaly. Terranomaly, it had started 40 years ago. 40 years in human time. Barely a blink to civilizations that measured age in millennia. Small, primitive species from a single planet in an unremarkable solar system had launched a primitive metal vessel into space. The council had noticed. They always noticed. "We observed them," said Representative Kale of the Draw. His deep vibrations translated smoothly. "We assumed they would follow the standard development path. Expand to their moon, expand to their neighboring planets, require perhaps 3,000 years before becoming relevant. They did not follow the standard path," said the Sin representative, her light pulsing an anxious ember. "They never follow any path we predict." The room rippled with agreement. Because that was the problem with humans. They were unpredictable. Every civilization in the galaxy had been studied, categorized, and understood using the convergence model, a mathematical framework developed over 200,000 years that could predict the development of any intelligent species with near-perfect accuracy. Humans broke the model. Every time, Eldavos gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, a timeline of human development compiled from 40 years of covert observation. "Let us review the evidence," he said. The display began. Year 1 of observation. Humans launched their first satellite. Primitive, expected. Year 3. Humans landed on their moon. Faster than predicted, but within acceptable variance. Year 8. Humans launched probes toward the outer edges of their solar system, still within model predictions. Year 12. Humans experienced a global crisis. A disease swept across their planet, killing millions. Every model predicted a setback of at least 200 years in their development. The Council had watched, with detached interest. Species that experienced such devastation typically retreated inward. They became cautious, conservative. They focused on survival rather than expansion. Year 14. Humans landed on their neighboring planet. 2 years after the crisis. The chamber had gone silent when that report came in. "They should have been broken," said the Sin representative quietly. "Any other species would have been broken." "They were not broken," said Elder Voss. "They were angry, and apparently, when humans become angry, they build things." The display continued. Year 18. Humans developed faster-than-light theoretical frameworks, concepts that other civilizations had taken tens of thousands of years to discover. Year 23. Humans made first contact with a minor species at the edge of their system. The Pelk, small, insectoid beings who had been watching Earth nervously for decades. The expected outcome: humans would either attempt to dominate the Pelk or ignore them. Actual outcome: humans helped them. The Pelk had been suffering from a resource crisis. Humans, despite being barely spacefaring themselves, had traded technology, food, synthesis data, and engineering knowledge to help stabilize the Pelk civilization. In exchange for what? Representative Kale had asked when this report first arrived. Nothing, the observer had reported. They asked for nothing in return. They said it was the right thing to do. The chamber had been confused by that for months.
Year 29. Humans discovered the remnants of an extinct species near the edge of their solar system, the Mori, who had died out 50,000 years ago. Humans spent 11 years cataloging, preserving, and mourning a species they had never met. They held memorials, said Elder Voss, his voice carrying something that almost sounded like discomfort, for beings they had never known, beings who died before humanity had even learned to write. Why? Asked the Sin representative. Because Elder Voss said slowly, they felt it was important that someone remembered. Silence. Year 35. Humans encountered the Grex, a mid-level aggressive species who had been expanding toward human territory. The Grex had destroyed for developing civilizations in the past millennium. They were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless, efficient conquerors. The Council had prepared to observe humanity's extinction. Instead, humanity fought back. The Grex had arrived with a fleet of 200 warships, standard conquest formation more than sufficient to overwhelm any developing civilization. Humanity had met them with 11 ships. 11, and humanity had 1. Not easily, not without cost. The human fleet was destroyed almost entirely. But before those 11 ships fell, they had taken down 40 Grex vessels, disabled 30 more, transmitted the entire Grex tactical database back to Earth, and most baffling of all, rescued the crew of a Grex ship that had been caught in the crossfire of their own allies' weapons. They saved their enemies, Representative Kale said, the vibrations in his voice carrying something close to bewilderment. They said the crew had done nothing wrong, said Elder Voss. They said the crew were soldiers following orders, and that soldiers following orders were not the enemy. More silence. And then prompted the Sin representative, and then, Elder Voss said, Earth built more ships. Faster, better. Within 3 years, they had a fleet of 400. Within 5 years, 1,000. The Grex have not returned. The display ended. Elder Voss let the silence sit, and he spoke. The convergence model cannot predict them. Our behavioral algorithms cannot categorize them. Every time we believe we understand what humans will do, they do something else entirely, something impossible. He paused. They feel emotions that contradict their survival instincts and act on those emotions anyway. They mourn species they never knew. They help civilizations that offer them nothing. They fight enemies that should destroy them. They survive catastrophes that should break them. And every time they are knocked down, stopped. Representative Kale finished the sentence. They get back up. Which is precisely why, said Elder Voss, they must be eliminated. The chamber erupted. It's not in protest, in agreement. Because every civilization in that room had built their power on predictability, on understanding, on control. The galaxy worked because the Council understood the galaxy. They knew what every species would do, needed, wanted, feared. Humans could not be understood. And what cannot be understood cannot be controlled. And what cannot be controlled is dangerous. They are still primitive, said one representative Lyra of the Suin, species of tall, blue-skinned beings who had ruled 3 star systems for 80,000 years. We act now, while we still can. In another 100 years, we may not have the option. They have done nothing aggressive toward council members, said another representative young by council standards. Only 10,000 years old, Marin of the Teshin, it said Lyra. The Grex were aggressive, Marin pressed. Humans defended themselves. That is not. The Grex are aggressive because we understand them, Lyra interrupted. We know their limits. We know what they want and what they will accept. Humans want everything. They feel everything. They are driven by 1,000 contradictory impulses simultaneously and somehow function. Do you want that energy? That chaos turned toward us? Marin fell silent. Elder Voss called the vote. 12 civilizations. 12 votes. 11 in favor of extermination. 1 abstention, Marin of the Teshin, could not bring herself to vote for death, but would not stand against the council. The motion carries, said Elder Voss. Humanity will be exterminated. Quietly, a manufactured plague. Indistinguishable from natural origin. They will not know it was us. They will not suffer long. It will be clean. He did not say merciful. He was not sure the word applied. Deployment in 30 days, he said. Council is adjourned. What Elder Voss did not know, what none of them knew, was that 32 light minutes away, on a human deep space monitoring station called Outpost Vega, a junior communications officer named Specialist Yara Osei had just finished decrypting a signal she was never supposed to intercept, a signal that changed everything. Yara stared at her screen for a long time. She was 26 years old. She had been stationed at Outpost Vega for 8 months. It was, by most measures, a boring posting, a small station at the edge of human-explored space, tasked with monitoring background radiation, cataloging stellar anomalies, and watching for signals. In 8 months, she had found exactly nothing interesting. The signal had been buried in a frequency range that human equipment wasn't supposed to be able to detect, a range that, technically, their instruments weren't sensitive enough to reach. But Yara had spent her off hours modifying her monitoring array, boosting its sensitivity by a factor of 12. Because she was bored and because she had always believed there was more out there than the official equipment could see. She had been right. The signal was encrypted in a format she had never seen. But Yara had also spent 3 years before her posting working in cryptographic analysis, and she had a gift for patterns that her supervisors had described as unsettling. It took her 4 hours to crack the outer encryption layer, 6 more hours for the inner layer. And then she read it. Her hands were shaking by the time she reached the end. She read it again, and she opened a priority channel to Earth. "This is Specialist Osei at Outpost Vega," she said, her voice steady, despite everything. "I need to speak with someone in command. Immediately. I have." She paused, looking at the words on her screen. "Extermination. 30 days. Unanimous." "I have intercepted communications from something called the Galactic Convergence Council," she said. "No. And I think they're going to try to kill us all." The next 30 days were the most intense in human history. Not because of panic, though there was panic at first in the rooms where the information was shared. It's not because of despair, though some felt it briefly in the dark hours before dawn. But because of something that had always defined humanity. Something that the Galactic Convergence Council had observed, but never truly understood. When humans are told they cannot survive, they get to work. The information was shared carefully, not publicly, not yet. World leaders, military commanders, scientists, engineers, the best minds humanity had produced, pulled into emergency sessions that ran 20, sometimes 30 hours straight. The questions came fast. What is the plague vector? Can we develop a countermeasure? Where will it be deployed? Do we have time? And beneath all those questions, the one that nobody said out loud, but everyone was thinking. How do we fight something we can't see, coming from civilizations we can't reach in 30 days? Commander Aisha Reyes, head of Earth's newly formed Interstellar Defense Division, stood at the head of a table in an underground facility in São Paulo and looked at the faces around her. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, diplomats. Every face was exhausted. Every face was scared. Good, she thought. Scared people pay attention. Here's what we know, she said. The Council has 30 days to deploy whatever they're using. We have 30 days to make ourselves a problem they weren't expecting. We don't know what the plague is, said Dr. Marcus Chen, Chief of Xenobiological Research. We don't know the delivery mechanism. We don't even know if our biology is compatible with whatever they've designed. Then we prepare for everything, Reyes said. Full planetary quarantine protocols. Every atmospheric monitoring station on maximum sensitivity. Every water treatment facility on lockdown. Every food production system isolated and independently filtered. That's an enormous undertaking, someone said. Yes, Reyes agreed. Good thing we have 30 days and 8 billion people. She pulled up a second display. Simultaneously, we work on offense. Not because we can fight the entire council, we can't. Not yet. But because we need options. Need to make them hesitate.
How?
Asked Admiral Chuck Wu, head of the space fleet. Reyes smiled. It was not a comfortable smile. Because, she said, we have something they don't. Something their models never accounted for. She paused. We know they're coming. Yara Osei sat across from Commander Reyes 72 hours after her transmission. She had been transported to Earth on the fastest ship in the fleet. debriefed for 16 hours, fed 3 meals that she barely tasted, and now sat in a chair that was extremely comfortable in a room that was extremely serious. "Tell me about the signal," Reyes said. "Everything. What was in it?" "I've read that." "Tell me about the frequency." "Encryption." "Everything you noticed," Yara told her. Reyes listened without interrupting. She was very good at listening. When Yara finished, Reyes was quiet for a long moment. "You modified the monitoring array yourself," Reyes said.
Yes.
"Without authorization?"
Yes.
"Why?"
Yara hesitated, because I thought there was more out there, and the standard equipment couldn't reach it, and I wanted to see. Reyes studied her. "The frequency you detected," she said. "Can you find it again?" "Yes. Can you send on it?" Yara blinked. "I don't know. Maybe. I'd have to." "Good," Reyes said, "because we need to send a message." The message took 11 days to compose. Not because the words were hard to find, humans were extraordinarily good at finding words, but because every word had to be perfect. Every sentence had to carry exactly the right weight. It was not a message of surrender. It was not a message of threat. It was something the Council had never received before in 200,000 years of operation. It was a message of introduction to the Galactic Convergence Council. "We know who you are. We know what you voted. We know what you are planning. We are writing to you not to beg for our lives, though we would prefer to keep them, and not to threaten you. Though we have prepared to make your plan considerably more difficult than you expect. We are writing to introduce ourselves properly, because we believe you have been watching us without understanding us. And we believe that is the root of your fear. You have watched us survive catastrophes. You have watched us fight enemies. You have watched us mourn species we never knew and help civilizations that offered us nothing. You have called us unpredictable and dangerous. We would like to offer a different interpretation. We are not unpredictable. We are driven by something your models do not measure. The belief that every life has value, not because it benefits us, not because it is logical, but because we have looked at the universe and decided that it is better with more living things in it than with fewer. We have prepared defenses against your plague. We will not make it easy. But more than that, we are prepared to make you a different kind of problem. We have spent 11 days contacting every species your council has overlooked, marginalized, or dismissed. The Pelk, the Teshin, the survivors of civilizations your expansion absorbed. The species too small to have a seat at your table. We have told them what the council voted. We have offered them an alternative, not an alliance built on power. An alliance built on the belief that no civilization should be exterminated for being unpredictable. You have 30 days to deploy your plague. We suggest you use them differently. Humanity PS, we have enclosed the complete decryption of your council communications for the past 40 years. We thought the species you've been quietly manipulating might find it educational. Elder Voss read the message 7 times. Then, he sat in silence for a very long time. Around him, the council chamber was chaos. The attached decryption had been educational. The Teshan representative Marain had resigned from the council within hours of receiving it, setting 23 specific instances of council manipulation of her civilization's development over the past century. The Soons Liara was facing demands from 6 of her own colony worlds after details of certain council resource agreements became public. And the Pelk Small, insectoid, dismissed by the council as barely relevant, had transmitted a response to humanity's outreach that included the codes to 17 council monitoring stations in 11 days. Humans had done this in 11 days. Elder Voss thought about what humans might do in 11 years, in 11 centuries. He thought about the message, the tone of it. No rage, no terror, no desperation, just clarity. We believe the universe is better with more living things in it. He turned to the council's lead strategist, a Veth elder named Sothu, who had served for 60,000 years. "If we proceed," Voss said quietly, "and we succeed, and I am no longer certain we will succeed. What happens in 100 years?" Soth was silent. "The species they have already contacted," Voss continued. "The Pelka, the Teshan, dissenters, the others." "What do they? What do they do? What does the galaxy do when it learns that the council exterminated a species for being unpredictable, for being kind, for being this?" Soth said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Voss had been leading the council for 4,000 years. He had made hard decisions before, necessary decisions, decisions that he had been certain were right. He was not certain now. "Recall the deployment," he said. The chamber fell silent. Elder Voss, Lyra began. "Recall it?" he said again. and arrange a formal communication with humanity's leadership. A real one. Not observation. Not manipulation. He paused. An introduction. Commander Reyes did not dress up for the meeting. She considered it, the diplomats certainly suggested it. But she decided against it. If the Council had been watching humanity for 40 years, they knew what humans looked like in their natural state. She wore her uniform. Clean, professional, real. The communication link took 4 hours to establish across the distance. The translation systems required another 2 hours of calibration, but when Elder Voss's image appeared on the screen, his 6 arms folded, his translucent skin catching the light of a star Reyes had never seen. She met his gaze steadily. Specially Susei sends her regards, Reyes said. She's the one who intercepted your communications, by the way. 26 years old. Modified her own equipment because she was bored and curious. Elder Voss was quiet for a moment. She was not supposed to be able to do that, he said. No, Reyes agreed. She wasn't. But she did it anyway. She paused. That's kind of our thing. Another silence. We have recalled the deployment, Elder Voss said. I know, Reyes said. Thank you. Do not thank me, he said. I did not do it out of mercy. I did it because you made us reconsider the mathematics. Reyes nodded. Fair enough, we can work with mathematics. You said in your message, Elder Voss said slowly, that you believe the universe is better with more living things in it. Yes. That is not rational. More living things means more competition, more conflict, more unpredictability. Sure, Reyes said. Also more solutions. More ideas. More people to notice things that others missed. More chances that, when something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong, there's someone with a different perspective who can fix it. Voss studied her through the screen. You are very strange, he said finally. I know, Reyes said. But we're still here, and we're still talking. And I think that's worth something, don't you? A long pause. Perhaps, said Elder Voss. Perhaps it is. History, human history, and eventually galactic history, would mark that conversation as the beginning of what became known as the Vega Accord. It was not a perfect peace. Peace rarely is. The Council did not suddenly become benevolent. Humanity did not suddenly become cautious. But something shifted. Slowly. Carefully. The way real things shift. Not in a single dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones. The Pelk sent a delegation to Earth. Humanity sent engineers to help expand their resource infrastructure. In return, the Pelk shared astronomical data that helped humanity map a region of space they had been struggling to chart for years. Maranavatashan, no longer a council representative, became the first non-human to attend a human university. She studied, of all things, music. She said she had seen humans create it during observation and had never understood it. She understood it. Eventually, she cried at a concert, watching a human orchestra play a piece that had been composed 300 years before first contact. She cried because she felt something she did not have a word for in her language, something that humans called moved. She went home and composed a symphony that combined Teshian harmonic theory with human emotional structure. It was, by most accounts, extraordinary. Elder Voss retired from the Council 12 years after the Vega Accord. In his retirement address, he said something that was later translated into every human language and carved into the wall of the first interstellar embassy. We spent 40 years watching a species, and believed we understood them. We understood their capabilities. We understood their technology. We understood their history. We did not understand that they were watching us too. We did not understand that they would choose, when given the choice between fear and curiosity, to be. We did not understand that when given the choice between vengeance and conversation, they would talk. We did not understand that when given the choice between safety and risk, they would reach out their hand. We called them dangerous because they were unpredictable. We were around. They were not unpredictable. We were simply not asking the right questions. The right question was never, what will humans do when threatened? The right question was, what do humans do when they have nothing to gain? The answer, it turns out, is everything. They help. They remember. They fight. They grieve. They build. They reach. They do all of this for no rational reason, except that they believe it matters. In 4,000 years of leadership, I never encountered a force more dangerous or more remarkable than a species that acts on belief rather than benefit. I am glad we failed to exterminate them. I believe the universe is glad too. Specialist Jarat ASA was 38 years old when the first permanent human embassy opened on a neutral station at the edge of Veth space. She was there, Because Commander Reyes, now Secretary General Reyes, had insisted. You started this, Reyes told her. You should see how it ends. Does it end? Yara asked. Reyes laughed. No. That's the point. Yara stood at the window of the embassy and watched ships arrive. Human ships, Veth ships, Pelk ships, Teshan ships, and a dozen others she was still learning to recognize. She thought about 8 months on Outpost Vega. About being bored. About modifying equipment that wasn't supposed to be modified, reaching for frequencies she wasn't supposed to be able to hear. She thought about the moment she read those words. Extermination approved, and the way her hands had shaken. She thought about the 30 days that followed. About 8 billion people who had refused to give up, who had gotten angry, and then gotten to work. Who had reached out to strangers in the dark and said, "We know what's happening to us, and we think it might be happening to you too, and maybe we're stronger together." She thought about all the things that humans were supposed to be. Primitive, unpredictable, chaotic, dangerous. She thought about all the things humans actually were. Stubborn, creative, grieving, laughing, building, reaching, always reaching. A small Pelk delegation passed through the corridor behind her, their multifaceted eyes catching the light, their mandibles clicking softly in what she had learned was the equivalent of cheerful conversation. One of them noticed her watching and made a gesture she had been taught, a slight forward bow. All 4 upper arms extended, palms up. It meant, roughly translated, "I see you. I'm glad you are here." Yara made the gesture back. She turned back to the window. Outside, the stars were extraordinary. She watched them for a long time, and she smiled. The Galactic Convergence Council voted to exterminate humanity. 12 civilizations. Unanimous. They were afraid of something they couldn't predict, couldn't control, couldn't understand, and they were right to be amazed by us. Not because we fought them, though we were ready to, but because, when we had every reason to be afraid, we chose to be curious instead. When we had every reason to strike back, we chose to reach out instead. When we had every reason to think only of ourselves, we thought of everyone else instead. That's what they missed. That's what they couldn't measure. That's what no model in the universe could ever predict. Because humanity isn't defined by our technology, or our weapons, or our survival rate. We are defined by what we do when we have nothing to gain. And the answer has always been the same. We help, we remember, we fight, we grieve, we build, we reach.